Adner here with Eden Valley Farm. Come with me as I'm clipping the tomatoes, pruning them, and as I'm working right now, the cameraman showed up, so I'm going to want to share with you some tips that will help you in growing your tomatoes at home. Now, one of the things that when you look at a tomato plant, you have something that is called your sucker right here. If you notice right here, that one is going to come off. You just snap it off just like that, or use a pruner if it's a little developed. If it's a little developed, it's not going to snap that easy. And one of the things first that we need to understand is that I see a very common problem is that, for example, you have two different types of tomatoes. You have a determinate tomatoes and you have an indeterminate tomato. So what it means is that if you're, for example, a home grower, you want to grow your tomatoes to do canning and sauce and things like that, you want to grow more of a Roma variety. You want to grow a determinate variety because that's a bush tomatoes. It gives you a lot of tomatoes all at once. Basically, all the tomatoes that is going to grow in its life cycle is really gonna give it to you almost all at once. So that's the variety that is very convenient for you, because if you plant, for example, like an indeterminate variety, the indeterminate variety gives you tomatoes for a longer period of time, but is little at a time, you know, 2 to 3 tomatoes a week. And that's great for us as, you know, farmers that we want to supply a market, and that's what we grow inside the greenhouses. We grow indeterminate variety, and it depends on your market and the size of your greenhouse. But if you could actually have a greenhouse and then master the growing technique of tomatoes, you could be making about $60,000 just in your greenhouses, and you don't really need a lot of manpower. That's one of the things, the beauty about growing tomatoes and in the greenhouse, that if you live near an area that has higher demands on tomatoes and you really want to perhaps just become self-sustainable, live off your land, a greenhouse is a good option for you. Now, of course, understanding that to grow tomatoes in the greenhouse, you are required to have a little bit of experience, or just have a good someone that could guide you right through it, which we do at Eden Valley as well. Now, when it comes to growing tomatoes, I want to share some techniques, some tips that will really enhance your skills in growing tomatoes. Tomatoes really don't like water on their leaves, that's one thing, and they don't like a lot of water at all. So make sure that you don't saturate, don't overwater your tomatoes, because what that's going to happen is that it's just going to, your fungus and insecticide, insects and things like that will grow. Basically you'll be saturated with fungus, with insecticides, just by simply overwatering your tomatoes. Another thing is that, you know, applying your fertilizer and your nutrients to the tomatoes on time, feeding your tomatoes heavily, that's something as well that will greatly help your plants. You know, in general, and it's kind of like with us as human, right? Like if you eat healthy, you'll be healthy, and that's the same with plants. Now, one of the things that it is critical that I'm actually experimenting now is on these tomatoes, is that you want to overfeed them. Basically, make sure your plants are fully with a lot of nutrients. And the reason I emphasize that is that sometimes we think that a plant look healthy. Sometimes we think that we have kind of maximized basically the amount of nutrient that a plant requires or that it has. But the reality is, actually, I have seen plants produce double or perform better just by simply having a better soil, having a lot of microorganisms in the soil, increasing the fungi activity in the soil, and just all that with the tomatoes. So lastly, one of the last tips that I want to share in growing tomatoes, just make sure you stay on top of it. Make sure you stay on top of the pruning, on top of the clipping, on top of fertilizing. Care is one of those things that really shows in gardening in general, but on tomatoes for sure. Like if you don't prune them right, if you don't prune them on time, you don't water them, fertilize them right, that's something that it's gonna show in your crops. So I was just wanting to share some tips. Right now I'm just have one row left of putting clips, and just in case you're wondering, we have a main line on top, and then we have these twines, and then this clip right here is what we use, and it's about every 10 inches you put one of these clips, and you do that. So next week subscribe and stay tuned, because we give updates on these tomatoes, and very soon, just to give you a date, we're filming this video at the beginning of May, so very soon, in about 2 weeks, these tomatoes will be up here. I mean, they grow so fast. Hey, I'm gonna be hosting a webinar, free webinar, to answer any of your questions. So if you're interested in growing, I'll be hosting that webinar, answering any questions that you guys may have, because the goal here at Eden Valley is to help families, growers, to do better and to really become self-sustainable and grow a great deal amount of food for their families and their community. I was just wanting to share this, how to grow tomatoes, the ins and out of it. And sorry if the video was a little bit too long, but I was just wanting to share. And as I'm working here, a lot of ideas and the things that we do come to mind. So thank you for watching. Subscribe, like our video, share it to your families and friends, and I'll see you in the next video.